You are not made of stone, whatever the last several months have quietly convinced you. I have watched you read the message about a friend's diagnosis while you stood at the kitchen sink with your sleeves pushed up. I watched your face do nothing at all. You set the phone down. You finished the dishes. And I heard the sentence you said afterward, under your breath, the one you have never repeated to another living soul. Something in me has died, and I could not tell you when it happened. I was at the funeral where your eyes stayed dry. I saw you check them in the car mirror on the way home, twice, the way someone checks a wound that stopped bleeding too soon. I have watched you play the song that used to undo you, the one that used to make you pull over. And I watched you play it a second time on purpose, louder, waiting for the old ache to show up on schedule. Nothing came. You turned it off before the last chorus, because listening to it fail was worse than the silence had been. Here is what almost no one around you has seen. You have become very good at the correct reaction. You know the face that belongs at a hospital bedside. You know when to reach for a hand, when to lower your voice, what someone needs to hear at the door of a house where a death has just happened. You do all of it well. Then you walk back to your car feeling like somebody who has learned to sign another name, convincingly enough that no bank would question it. They call you steady. You have a different word for it, and you have not said your word out loud to anyone. And in the quiet, you have handed down a verdict on yourself. That the coldness is proof I withdrew. That you crossed a line somewhere. The prayer you stopped praying. The resentment you fed longer than you should have. The year you handled badly. And this is simply what it costs. You have decided that a numb chest is the receipt. Let that verdict out of your hands before we go any further, because you have been carrying it as though I signed the bottom of it. I did not. The numbness did not begin as rebellion. It began as survival. There was a stretch where feeling all of it would have cost you the ability to function, and other people were depending on your functioning. So something in you turned the volume down, not by decision, not in a moment you could point to on a calendar. A hand that grips a rope every day for a season does not choose the callus. The skin simply thickens where the rope keeps pulling. You are not being punished for anything. You are being worn. Nobody hardens in a single afternoon. It happens by degrees, the way a pond takes ice, thin enough at first that you could break it with a finger, and nobody watching the surface can say which hour it became solid. There was no moment of choosing. There was a phone call, and then another one. A door that closed and did not reopen. A stretch where you got up before dawn to keep a household running, and there was simply no room in the day for what you were feeling, so you set it aside for later, and later never arrived. Every one of those was reasonable. Added together over years, they built something you did not intend to build and cannot dismantle with a decision. And you kept going anyway. That part matters more than you have let it matter. You still showed up. You still prayed the short, dry prayers you were half ashamed of. You still made the meals, still sat in the same seat, still said the words at the table with your eyes open and nothing at all rising behind your ribs. You have called that hypocrisy. I call it loyalty carried out in the dark, and I have not valued it 1 degree less because it arrived without goosebumps. But I have also watched you try to perform the repair yourself, and this is where I want to slow you down. You have gone looking for the feeling the way someone searches a drawer for a key they are certain is in there. Louder music, a harder sermon, a retreat, a fast, a book that promised your chest would burn again by the final chapter. You have squeezed your eyes shut and tried to force water out of them, and then despised yourself when nothing came. None of that was faithless. All of it was exhausting, and none of it could do what you were hoping, because you were attempting an operation on yourself that was never yours to perform. Touch your own throat now, with the backs of 2 fingers rather than the palm, the side of it, just under the jaw, where you would check another person for fever. You are not hunting for a pulse. You are not waiting on a word to climb out. You are checking for warmth, and it is there. And it has been there the whole while without you supervising it. Stone does not do that. Stone takes whatever temperature the room hands it and gives nothing back. Whatever you have concluded about yourself, your body has been making heat all day, without your permission and without your belief. Some of you are the nurse who stopped crying in the parking lot years ago and cannot decide what that says about her. Some of you sat through the last week of a parent's life and felt more relief than sorrow when it ended, and have told no one, and it has been eating at you since. Some of you are 26 and cannot understand why nothing lands anymore. Not the music, not the good news, not the face of the one who loves you. 4 different rooms, 1 temperature in all of them. The part that frightens you most is not what happens at church. It is what has happened at your own table. Affection turned into logistics somewhere along the line. Schedules, groceries, who is picking up whom, a kiss on the way out the door that is more punctuation than anything else. You still choose that person. Every day in 100 small ways you choose them, but you cannot locate the old feeling anywhere, and you have started to fear that duty is all that remains, and that they can tell. Hear me on this. Love that keeps showing up after the feeling thinned is not a counterfeit of the real thing. It is the older, sturdier half of it, and most of what gets called romance in your world would collapse under 1 week of what you have been quietly doing for years. And there is the other thing you have not said. My words on the page read like a manual now. You open them out of discipline, and the sentences that once went through you like weather now sit there, flat and informational, and you close the book wondering what broke. Nothing broke. A page cannot be dry and wet at once. Sometimes you are reading for warmth when the reading is meant to be building. Foundations are laid in the cold months, quietly, when nothing above ground looks like it is growing. Keep reading. What goes in during a numb season sits there intact, waiting for the day something in you is able to receive it. There is a specific dread in singing words you cannot feel. You have stood in a room full of people whose faces were wet, holding the words in front of you, feeling like somebody who slipped in under a false name. And the thought underneath it, the one that never quite gets said out loud. He must prefer them. He must be nearer to the ones who can still cry, as though I graded a room by moisture, as though tears were the transaction and the one crying them incidental. Some of you went numb in a room where you were needed every hour and thanked for none of them. The caregiver learns this first. You cannot afford to feel the full weight of a person's decline while you are lifting them, dressing them, counting out their week, answering the same question for the 9th time with a level voice. So you flatten. It is not cruelty. It is the only way the body knows to keep its footing under a load like that. And then comes the part you would never confess to anyone. The flicker of resentment toward the one you love, followed instantly by shame, followed by a fresh layer of the cold to bury both. I am not shocked by the resentment. I have yet to confuse an exhausted heart with an unloving one. Something worth noticing about hands before we go on. A hand that has gripped the same rope through a long season keeps the shape of the rope for a while after it lets go. The fingers stay curled. The grip stays half closed around nothing. Nobody looks at that hand and calls it ruined. Everyone understands it is only slow to open, and that it will open, and that it has simply been holding something too long to release it in an instant. You have been holding something too long as well, and your chest kept the shape of it. A whole generation once lost the ability to feel their own religion. They had been carried far from the country they were born in, and everything that used to move them. The songs, the feast days, the smell of the place where they had prayed since childhood was hundreds of miles behind them and not coming back. They did not turn wicked. They went flat. They kept the customs with their hands and felt nothing behind their ribs. And after enough years of that, they stopped expecting to feel anything ever again. It was to those people, the flattened ones, the ones who had not asked me for a thing, that I sent the promise I'm about to put in front of you. You are going to hear it and assume it was addressed to somebody else. Another people, another century, an old grievance you have no part in. But a promise reveals the character of the one making it, and character does not expire when the audience does. Whatever I was willing to do for a flattened generation that had stopped asking me for anything, I am willing to do in a kitchen, in a parked car, in a chest that went quiet for reasons nobody around you knows about. And notice when it came to them. Not after they had cleaned themselves up. Not once the exile had finished teaching its lesson and they had produced the appropriate remorse. It arrived while they were still flat, still far from the country they missed, still going through the motions that meant nothing to them anymore. The promise came first. Everything they became afterward grew up out of it, and not the other way around. Notice, too, what I did not say to them. I did not instruct them to soften their own hearts. Nearly every other word they had ever been given began with a verb they had to perform. Go, keep, bring, remember, turn back. This one does not. This one describes an operation carried out on a patient who is not awake for it. That single difference is the reason it can reach you, because anyone able to soften himself would have no use for the promise, and anyone who cannot is precisely who it was written down for. Notice before you hear it, who is doing the work in every clause of it, not you. There are 4 verbs in that promise, and I am the subject of all 4. You are the one it happens to. That single detail undoes almost everything you have been attempting on your own in the dark. The forcing, the testing, the working yourself up in the parking lot before you walk into a room where you are supposed to feel something. Ezekiel 36:26. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. Read it in pieces. I will give you a new heart, not repair the old one, not lecture it into softening, not wait for it to demonstrate potential. Give. It is a gift, which means it cannot be earned by intensity and cannot be forfeited by dullness. And put a new spirit in you. The warmth is not manufactured out of your own thin reserves. Something of mine goes in. I will remove. The hard thing comes out by my hand, not by you prying at your own chest with your fingernails, and give you a heart of flesh. Flesh. Not marble, not armor, not anything impressive. Soft tissue, the kind that bruises, which is precisely the point. What I am handing back is the capacity to be affected again, and that is a costlier gift than you understood yourself to be asking for. Sit with that middle clause a moment longer, because it is the one you keep skipping. A new spirit put in you, not summoned up out of your own depleted supply. You have been trying to heat a house by rubbing your hands together in the middle of a room and wondering why the walls stay cold. That is not how warmth enters a house. It comes in from a source outside the room, through pipes nobody standing in the doorway can see, and the house does not have to understand the boiler to be warm. What is being offered to you is a supply line, not a better technique for shivering. Hear the order in it too. The removal comes before the new thing is fully seated, and there is a stretch in between where somebody feels neither the old hardness nor the new warmth, only absence, the strange quiet of something being taken out. Some of you are standing in exactly that gap and reading it as abandonment. It is not. It is the middle of a sentence that has not reached its second half yet. I am not asking you to be ashamed of the armor. You built it in a season when the blows were landing daily and nobody stood between you and them. It did its job, but armor was never meant to become skin, and you have worn it so long you have started introducing yourself as it. What I take out of you, I take out gently, and I take it out because you will not need it where I am walking you next. Let me be honest about what returning feeling is actually like, because a soft promise here would do you real damage. When a hand that has been numb for hours begins to wake, it does not wake pleasantly. It burns. It stings the entire way back. The first thing many of you will feel when feeling returns is not joy at all. It is the grief you postponed, arriving late and all at once, in the middle of an unremarkable afternoon, over something small enough to embarrass you. That is not a setback. That is tissue coming back online. Do not run from the sting into the cold again. The burning is evidence, not punishment. Some of what you are mourning was never feeling in the first sense. It was adrenaline, and adrenaline is not the same as nearness to me. The early years of anything run hot. New love, new faith, new work. Everything is loud because everything is unfamiliar, and the body reads unfamiliar as urgent. When that quiets, it can look identical to death from the inside. It is not identical. A marriage 20 years in does not feel like the week of the wedding, and only a fool would call the 20th year emptier. Some of your quiet is not stone at all. Some of it is depth, and you have been grieving it as loss because nobody ever taught you the difference. But you know which of yours is which. You know the difference between a calm that rests and a flatness that does not care. I am not going to argue you out of the honest part of your own diagnosis. Where there is genuine hardness, name it to me plainly, without the softening you would use on anyone else. Not a performance of repentance, just the fact, reported the way you would report weather. I have gone cold and I do not know how to warm myself. That sentence is not weakness. It is the only door this promise has ever needed. And notice what you have been doing to your prayers before you say them. Editing. You take the flat, unfeeling sentence you actually have and you dress it up on the way out, adding the warmth you think a prayer is supposed to arrive with, because handing me something that dry felt disrespectful. So, I get a performance from someone who is standing right in front of me with nothing. Bring the dry one. It has more of you in it than the decorated version ever had, and I would rather have a true sentence said badly than a beautiful one said by somebody who left himself outside the door. Here is the sign you have been overlooking the whole time, and it has been sitting in plain view. The coldness bothers you. You have been grieving your own hardness for months, quietly, in the car and at the sink and in the middle of the night. A truly stone heart does not do that. Stone has no complaint about being stone. It does not lie awake missing the warmth it used to have. The very ache that brought you here, the fact that you want to feel and cannot, and that this cost you something, is tissue, not rock. Something in you is already alive enough to mourn the deadness. That is not nothing. That is the first line of the answer, written before you noticed anyone was writing. Stop for a moment and look at one thing near you until you actually see its color. Not the whole room. One thing. The corner of a curtain, a mug, the back of your own hand. You have been moving through your days at a distance from everything inside them. And this is not a technique that fixes that. It is a small proof that attention still works when you hand it something to land on. There's a whole company of people who kept coming to me with empty hands, no warmth to offer, no tears to prove anything with. They came anyway and said the words anyway, and not one of them was turned back at the door for arriving cold. You are in older company than you know. Somebody who prays without feeling is not the weakest one in the room. More often than not, that is the one who has been at it the longest. Understand what you are actually asking for when you ask for this, because on the hard days you will want the stone back. Flesh bruises. Flesh feels the funeral, and the news out of a country you will never visit, and the look on a child's face when the answer is no. Numbness is cheaper. It always has been. Half the people you know have made a quiet arrangement with it, and call the arrangement maturity. What I am offering costs more than that, and I will not pretend otherwise. A soft heart in a hard world will be handled roughly and will keep on feeling anyway. It is still the better trade. A life that cannot be moved by joy either, and there is far more gladness ahead of you than you currently believe. There is also a version of you that has been praying for the wanting, not for the feeling itself. You gave up on that some time ago, but for the desire to have it back, because even the desire has gone thin. Make me one honest request then, and let it be that small. I do not want this, and I would like to want it. That is a real prayer. It has been prayed by people you would be startled to hear it from, and I have never treated it as a lesser class of asking. Wanting to want is where nearly every returning heart starts. You are not at the beginning of nothing. You are at the beginning of something, standing at the edge of it and calling the edge a wall. What I am not handing you is a date, not a week, not a season, not a guarantee that the song will undo you the next time it comes on. Some of what went quiet in you may stay quiet a good while longer, and some of it may return in a shape you would not have chosen, an ordinary tenderness instead of the old flood. I will not dress that up to make this easier to sit inside. What is promised here is not the return of a sensation. It is a new heart, given by me, kept by me, and that promise is not waiting on your chest to cooperate first. You have wondered whether the coldness changed how I look at you. It did not. I have never loved anyone on account of how easily they cry. A father does not love the child less on the mornings the child is too tired to say it back. What I feel toward you has never been a mirror of what you can feel toward me. If it had been, you would have lost me during the first hard year, and you did not lose me, and you are still here listening. You have a card somewhere you never sent. You bought it, you meant it, you wrote the first line, and then could not find one true thing to put underneath, because everything you tried sounded like somebody performing affection at a distance. It is still in a drawer, still unfinished. I am not condemning the drawer. I want you to know that I read the first line. I know exactly what you meant to put under it, and I have never needed the rest of it in order to believe you. Think about what the cold has actually kept out, not only the pain, the gladness as well. A wall has no way of telling what it is refusing. So the good news arrived and it landed as information. Your child said something funny at the table and you laughed on the outside, correctly on time, and felt nothing move. The wall could not tell the difference between the thing that would have hurt you and the thing that would have healed you. That is why I'm not content to leave you inside it. Not because you failed at feeling, but because the same thickness that kept the grief out has been holding the joy at arm's length too, and you were not built to live behind that. Some of you have started running tests on yourselves, and I will name it, because you have never admitted it to anyone. You reread the last messages from the person who died deliberately to see whether it still hurts, and when it does not, you take that as final proof that something in you is broken past repair. Put the tests down. Grief that has gone underground is not grief that has been canceled. A river that runs beneath a field is still a river, and the field above it is greener than the ones on either side, and nobody standing there can explain why. The exchange I described does not require you to produce anything. It requires you to stop guarding the place where it happens. That is different, and it is harder in a way effort never was. You have kept your chest sealed because you learned that the things which get in have a habit of taking something with them on the way out. So you kept out the losses and the disappointments, and eventually you kept me out too. Not deliberately, just as part of the same sweep. Unsealing it is not a feat of strength. It is one honest sentence said to me without decoration. And some of you are on the other side of this, watching someone you love go quiet behind their eyes. You have tried the things that used to work. The favorite meal, the old joke, the photograph you were sure would land. Nothing did, and now you are frightened, and underneath the fear is a question you could not ask them to their face. Is this person still in there? They are. What you are looking at is not the absence of love for you. It is a wall built during a season you may not have witnessed, and walls are not dismantled by being argued with. Stay. Be unimpressive about it. Keep bringing the ordinary day and asking for nothing back, and let me handle the part that happens under the skin. Memory is worth something here too, and you have been using yours against yourself. When you remember the year you could feel, the night you wept in the back of a room and could not have told anyone why, the stretch when a single line of a psalm would take your legs out from under you, you replay it as an accusation. Look at what you were. Look at what you have become. But a memory of warmth is not a taunt. It is evidence. The wiring exists. You are not somebody who has to be built from scratch. You are somebody who has run warm before, which means every part required for it is still in you, waiting on current. There are people near you running this same performance right now, reasonably certain they are the only one in the building doing it. You will recognize them from here on. The one whose sympathy always arrives with the right words and none of the weight behind them. Do not ask them to perform warmth on your behalf. Sit beside them and let the conversation be ordinary and slow. It is a great deal easier to thaw next to somebody who is not measuring you for a reaction. Breathe out slowly across your own hands now, the way you would to warm them on a cold morning, and let the breath going out last longer than whatever breath fed it. Notice that a short, sharp breath does nothing at all to the skin. Warmth only ever comes off the long one, the unhurried one, the one that empties you further than seemed necessary. You cannot force heat into your hands. You can only give it enough time to arrive. When it comes back, it will not come back the way you have been picturing it. Not a wave in a crowded room with the music swelling behind you. More likely an ordinary afternoon at a stoplight, over something small and unimportant. A kid on a bicycle, the shape of the light on a wall, an old man taking a corner slowly with his groceries. And your throat will tighten for 2 seconds and you will not be able to explain it. That is the beginning. Do not despise the size of it. The first sign of life in a numb limb is never a fist. It is a twitch. Watch for it in your patience before you watch for it in your prayers. That is usually where it shows first. The slow driver ahead of you who does not get the sigh he would have gotten last year. The cashier, whose hands are shaking and who suddenly has a face to you instead of being an obstacle between you and the parking lot. A voice on the phone you would normally have hurried along and you let it run. None of that will feel like a spiritual experience while it is happening. It will feel like nothing much. But warmth arrives in the extremities first, and the extremities of a heart are the strangers. And if it stays quiet longer than you hoped, keep coming anyway, exactly as you have been. Bring the flat prayers. Bring the words you cannot feel yet. Say the true things out of obedience while the warmth is still in transit, because obedience offered without emotion is not a lesser gift to me. It may be the purest one you have ever handed over, given as it is with nothing in it for you. The ones who love me in the cold love me for something other than the way I make them feel. So hear the last of it plainly, and let this be the part you carry out of here. The numbness is not the verdict you took it for. It is not proof that I left. It is not proof that you are past reach. It is the condition of something that had to protect itself in a world that gave it every reason to, and it is exactly the condition I promised to answer, not by demanding that you feel more, but with an exchange I carry out myself, on tissue that was mine before it was ever yours. You are not stone. You were never stone. You are flesh that went quiet for a season, held the entire time by the one who never went quiet at all. Amen.